Hey, welcome to Graphic Policy Television GPTV. I'm Brett. It's New Week of Comics in my hands. Is one of those releases. It's History Comics, The Challenger Disaster, graphic novel from First Second's History Comics line. The History Comics line is fairly new for First Second. They've released two before, Roanoke Colony and The Great Chicago Fire. I thought both of them were really interesting. I learned a lot. I thought they were great for both adults and kids. I gotta say, out of the first three releases, this is the one I've really been looking forward to. January 28th, 1986. I would have been about 6 years old. Yeah, I've been 6, turning 7. So, and I remember the Challenger disaster. I think it's one of those days that's iconic for people of that generation that lived through it. Kind of like the Kennedy assassination, they could tell you where they were. From my experience, I think we were too young to watch, so I don't think we were going anywhere to actually watch the shuttle take off. But I remember being in the hallway and then hearing people say, "Oh no." So for those who don't know, Challenger disaster was a tragedy, happened in NASA. As I said, in 1986, the shuttle exploded in a complete meltdown disaster. And the big thing with it was supposed to be a real big PR push for the shuttle program. The interest had been waning at that time, and they had decided to have a contest with a teacher and have the teacher go up in space. So they went and held this contest, and with that, a lot of schools were watching. It was going to kind of spur the interest in space travel and kind of spawn the next generation of NASA scientists and really kind of kick things off. And obviously, it didn't go as planned. So what was interesting is kind of reading this is that, I know what happened. Like, I generally got the sense of everything. And, there's moments I knew were coming and kind of did the oh no. And there's a couple scenes, one particular that I seared in my memory of the astronauts walking to the shuttle and waving and to the cameras and all that. And that scene's captured. And I saw with that scene, like, I knew it was coming, and it still hits me. As much as I didn't like him as president, I think President Reagan's speech afterwards was beautiful. It was touching, and it's included in the graphic novel. A little snippet of it. I think it's a snippet. I don't think it's the whole thing. But like the key moment at the end is there, and it hit me. I remember this. This was a sad moment in American history, and like 9/11, like Kennedy assassination. Like this is obviously Kennedy assassination. I wouldn't know, but 9/11, like I could tell you where I was. Like I could tell you how I felt, and could tell you what I remembered. So the story itself in the graphic novel is really interesting. Is what they do is they frame it in that it's 400 years in the future, and there's Challenger Day, and Challenger Day. It's supposed to reflect on what happened, and kids discuss and kind of do a report on it. And it's a bunch of kids doing a report about the shuttle program, the Challenger disaster, and why it's important. And I think it's a really interesting way of doing it instead of just going through the history of it. It's a bit more entertaining that way. It doesn't quite feel as dry. I really enjoy it. So the graphic novel itself is done by Pranas T. Naujokaitis, and then color by Cassie Hart. And I like that framing. I think it's cool. It's interesting. And the big thing on it is it is able to take this disaster and turn it into something good, because the end of it is a reflection of what that disaster, like what led from it. And yes, the NASA program it was fumbled for quite a long time and still trying to recover, but there shows perseverance. There shows that throughout humanity, like we have experienced disasters and we persist. Titanic, Hindenburg, Challenger disaster, like we will see tragedy like this over and over, and we still explore, we still move on. We still persist. I think is really, I can't think of a better way of describing it. The other thing that there was a lot I learned from this. It goes through the history of the shuttle itself, which I thought was really interesting, and then it shifts into the crew members, and I think really fascinating by it that it never really clicked to me is how many firsts and seconds of the crew members there were. Second African American astronaut. First Jewish woman to go into space. First or second woman, second American woman to go into space. Fourth woman to go into space. First Asian American American to go into space. Or maybe just in general, Asian person in general go into space. The crew was filled with people who were pioneers. On top of teacher, which had never been done before. I don't think it had ever been done before. So, I think it also reflects and shows, how still young and fresh this exploration and this aspect of humanity was. This isn't something that's been around for 100 years and tons of people have done it. This was still a pretty new thing, and there was still a lot of new ground being broken at that time, even though it was 1986. And I just don't think I've ever thought about it that way, and I don't think it has ever really hit me. So I thought that was really interesting. And then the other aspect is it goes into the investigation, and it shows that the investigation itself had issues. A lot of the people involved with the investigation were directly tied to NASA and the shuttle program, the space program as a whole. And, if truly negative things came out about the program, that they would be damaged as far as their careers and their investments. And the thing that I remember coming out of it was O-ring, and something about it freezing and fuel leaking and igniting. And that's there, but it explains it a lot better as to exactly what the issue is. The thing is, I didn't know was how they came to the O-ring, which was like a whistleblower thing, and who the whistleblower was that informed them. That was all new to me. So it's really interesting is I knew the basics. Obviously I witnessed that history myself, or at least, was around for that history myself. And I don't think I was watching on TV. I remember being in the hallway. I really do remember being in a hallway walking and not watching it on TV. I remember walking into a room afterwards to see what was going on. But yeah, so sorry. And so I learned a lot. This is a thing that you might know a lot of the basics of it in the general history, but this does, I think, a really good job of framing it, of building up the history, who these people were, why it was important. I learned a lot about payload specialists. I didn't know that there weren't astronauts, that these were kind of civilian people. That was totally new to me. It was something I never knew, and I love space and NASA and all that stuff. I always got kicks out of it. I love going and checking that stuff out. So I learned a lot. I still learned a lot out of it, and I think it's really cool. It's appropriate for adults and kids. I don't think necessarily a young kid would really care, but teenagers would probably dig it, especially those that maybe are into science and space. So overall, for $12.99, this is a pretty cool pickup to learn some history and just learn something new. The art is, I don't know, sorry, it's kiddish, cartoonish. I don't think it necessarily needs to be anything special, highly detailed. It does a really solid job of explaining everything. We can try to show some of the, here they explain how the shuttle works, which is, something cool to know. I don't know if you know that shuttles aren't actually planes, that they're gliders. Goes into things like the heat shields and how it actually lands and gets through the heat and all that. Kind of let's just show a photo of the crew. Yeah, so I think this is the part that when the crew starts going. That to me it's an iconic, seared into my memory video. So that's in there. So yeah, and I think there's a lot of really cool, neat stuff in here. And as I said, I feel like I learned a lot. I lived through this history, and I think it really kind of clears things up for me as to what happened, why it happened, and kind of where we go from there, and why they're so important, and why we need to continue fighting for space exploration and chasing the heavens. So yeah, highly recommend. I love it. Like, I think this is really cool. I love the fact that First Second is doing these graphic novels. This is a great way. Like, they're science comics. This is a great way to learn. This is an absolutely fantastic way to learn. So check it out. It's out in shops now. It's out in comic shops. We got a link beneath this video. Put in your zip code of Telefish comic shops near you. No shop, no problem. We do have some affiliate links there. Affiliate links. We get a little about from that, but some aren't. But some of them are also comic shops. So you go support them. Go support your comic shop. And speaking of support, I want to thank First Second for hooking us up with this review copy, and thank you for watching. Now, if you're into comics, if you are into graphic novels, check us out every single day at graphicpolicy.com. We're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Tumblr, all at Graphic Policy, keeping it nice and consistent. So until next time, keep reading those comics and keep it geeky. Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.